Welcome, everyone, to Buddha Center. It's so wonderful to be here with you tonight. It's a privilege to be able to talk to you about the stages of the path to enlightenment, as presented by Lama Tsongkhapa in the Great Treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment in the broader perspective, and also the Great Treatise on the stages of the Tantric path to enlightenment in the broader perspective, but looking at it through the lens of this magnificent poem called The Foundation of All Good Qualities, the Source of All My Good. This 14 stanza poem that somehow encompasses everything found in those two huge volumes I just mentioned, the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment and the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Tantric Path to Enlightenment. So this little tiny poem, believe it or not, that we've been studying and studying and studying contains everything that can be found in those great texts. And anybody who's worked with those great texts will know that that's an enormous amount of information and really, really beautiful information. So that's why I say it's such a privilege to be able to be here with you tonight, to do the best that I can to explain this because of the kindness of my teachers, because of the kindness of Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, Geshe Lobsang Gonpo Rinpoche, Geshe Dorji Damdul Rinpoche, Gen Jeffrey Hopkins, Umse Geshe Agha, and so many other teachers. And of course, His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, because of the kindness of these incredible teachers who are really inseparable from the deity, who are really inseparable from Manjushri, inseparable from Aryatara, inseparable from Chenrezig. Because of their kindness, I have the ability to give you a little sample of what this is all about. They were able to give me the full, convey the full feeling of it because of the much higher realizations that they had. But I'll do the best that I can within my limited perspective, based on my ability to parakeet what I've heard, to convey to you what they conveyed to me. And that was exactly what one needs to do in order to go from wherever one is to complete Buddhahood and the stages necessary to make that happen. And before we go further, let me say, in the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yakshas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma and the language of all. So, we've now entered, it's been over a year and a half, the section on the great scope in this poem. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see clearly that everyone my own mother has fallen into. And may I generate this wish to free them all. May I generate the mind of bodhicitta. So we've now, have been dealing with for a year and a half the entrance into the great scope, the great vehicle, the Mahayana, how to actually enter into the Mahayana. The way we enter into the Mahayana is by generating bodhicitta. The way that we generate bodhicitta is what we've been talking about, and that I'm so excited to talk more about this evening. We went over the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha, down through the extensive deeds lineage, through Lama Tsongkhapa and Lord Atisha and Master Drone Tompa, down through all these incredible masters, and eventually to us because of the kindness of our lamas that we've actually been in contact with in our lives. So we went over that practice extensively and saw how one would, if he or she practiced this day after day after day, have a mental transformation that took place because the causal factors for that transformation were there. And that's why it's called the 7-point cause and effect, for the effect of bodhicitta. So we went extensively over this 7-point cause and effect practice, because it's one of the two ways that one can generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And that mind generation is the only entrance into the Mahayana. Without that mind generation, one cannot become a Buddha. Because when you generate that mind, you become what's called a child of the Buddhas. You become a bodhisattva. And it's the bodhisattva vehicle. If you had a car that only went to Buddhahood, it's the bodhisattva vehicle that's the only vehicle that actually ends up directly at Buddhahood. And when we look at all of the different teachings that Buddha gave, uh, we would say from the Madhyamaka Prasangika perspective that there's really only one vehicle at the end of the day, because all of the other things that the Buddha taught were for the sake of getting one to this vehicle to get to Buddhahood. Even those teachings to make one an arhat were for the sake of ripening one's mind so that then the Buddha could come to them in their arhatship, in their abiding nirvana, and convince them that they're not done and that they haven't fulfilled all of their needs, let alone the needs of all sentient beings. So we see that this one thing is necessary for us to get to the goal that we all want, and that's the complete freedom from suffering and the most high amount of happiness that we can achieve, the most reliable kind of being that we can be. Because we see in our own lives when we aren't reliable, when we don't really know how to help, we don't know exactly the right thing to do, how that disturbs our mind. So, how nice it would be if this unreliability was taken away and replaced with complete reliability, omniscience, great compassion, pure love, and unbiased attitude towards every single sentient being in the universe, if we could get out of our own way. So it's amazing that we've learned for so much time what these causes are and learn them by looking at Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings and looking at the Nalanda Pandit's teachings, Arya Sangha and Acharya Dharmakirti's teachings, and then looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings and Pabonka Rinpoche's teachings and the great Dalai Lama's, Lamas I say because many of them, their texts we looked at, and the two Panchen Lamas, great Panchen Lamas texts that we looked at in order to work our way through the meaning of this. And I feel that we did a great job. And, I know that my mind has moved closer to understanding how bodhicitta would occur in my mind. How it would occur in your mind. I'm not sure, but I can see how because you're a sentient being, I would think that it would occur similar for you. But what I can say from my mind is that these steps have had the influence on my mind enough to believe that it's possible to generate a mind where I would put others' needs before my own, and that would be the secret to my happiness. So we learn that way. The other way that we're now going to learn to become bodhisattvas is called the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri to Arya Nagarjuna, down through to Bodhisattva Shantideva, down through the profound view lineage to Lama Tsongkhapa, Lord Atisha, Master Drontompa, and then down through these kind masters, eventually landing in our laps. And here we are tonight, able to read English, able to have the second volume of the Great Treatise and the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment in English. It's only one volume in Tibetan, but the second volume is where we find these teachings on bodhicitta. We have this in English. We have all of these conditions that are ripe for us to learn about this equalizing and exchanging self with others practice. So that's what we're going to now focus on for the next year. How to make sense out of this idea that cherishing myself is absolutely ludicrous and that cherishing others makes all the sense in the world, and that somehow for the bodhisattva, cherishing others means cherishing themselves. How could that be? How could that be that, taking care of my needs would be somehow connected to taking care of your needs? That doesn't make any sense. What we do most of the time is stuff to take care of our needs, and it makes only makes sense to us. I go to work so that I make sure I have a house, so that my family can be taken care of, so blah, 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 blah. But the bodhisattva sees that somehow they may be doing all of that stuff, but the heart has changed. And they're doing all of that stuff for everyone else and not for themselves. And somehow that takes care of them. It's a mind change. This is why it's called mind training. One has to become convinced that cherishing oneself has all kinds of nasty consequences and has since beginningless time, and that cherishing others is something that we haven't really done that much, but the little bit that we've done has proven to us that it makes us happier. And we have to work from where we are at. We should never hear these teachings and then suddenly tomorrow morning decide that we're going to become these altruistic beings, give everything away, and then just start working day and night for others' needs, because we have to start from the place where we're at. This is a disclaimer that really needs to be said, because when we read these teachings, we can get very enthusiastic initially, and what can happen is our, enthusiasm will be much greater than our ability to kind of take care of others and help others and work with others. We don't have any happiness to export. And we think we can export happiness. We have to make sure that we're on a solid ground and that we're, only doing what we can within our capacity. Nagarjuna says, the bodhisattvas would give their eye, but you should probably start by just giving some vegetables. So we work within our capacity. So when we read this idea of putting others' needs before our own, this is in a wise way. Geshe Dorji Damdul says, be wisely kind to yourself. This is not idiot compassion. This isn't just run me over. This is a very skillful way to psychologically handle other sentient beings and understand that they're under the sway of something that makes them out of control and allows you to see a broader picture with compassion. So this just makes sense logically to do. So this equalizing and exchanging self with others practice that we're going to start to learn about, which will help us to know how, when we start the teachings and say, okay, now let's try to do our best to generate the most beautiful mind in the universe, Bodhicitta. Will really, the more we do these teachings and go over the texts, the more we'll be like, okay, this is how I do it. This is how I would do it. Here are some steps I can quickly go through in my mind. Because once you get really good at this, even if you don't generate bodhicitta, through glancing meditation, by the time I get done saying, okay, now let's generate the most beautiful mind in the universe, as Lord Maitreya says in the Abhisama Alamkara, the altruistic mind, the intention to become a Buddha, have the highest enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. When you get to the point where you've done this a lot, even though when I say that, you may not be like, spontaneously, effortlessly generating this idea in your mind, you, after enough classes and enough reading, could go, oh, equanimity, recognizing sentient beings are our mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repair their kindness, love through the force of attraction, great compassion, altruism, bodhicitta. 9 steps according to the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice, equalizing self and others, downfalls of cherishing self, the good qualities of cherishing others, taking, which is in the light of compassion, giving, which is in the light of love, the actual exchange, recognizing the great kindness of all, altruism, bodhicitta. These things, once we can kind of have them at our fingertips, then we can really, when we have to go to think about it and don't have a book, and things are rough, we have these steps to work with. And Minyak Kunsan Sunam, in his commentary on Bodhisattva Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, says the same thing that His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, that if you, at the time of death, have a mind of compassion, you don't really need to worry. If you have a bodhicitta as kind of your basis of operation, you're not really going to engage in non-virtuous activities, because the non-virtuous activities, when we read them, they're about harming others. And once you get this intention to work for others' needs, you're not really going to lie to someone or steal from someone or kill someone or take their partner from them or any among the other things that we are not supposed to do, or gossip, so that you wouldn't gossip. You wouldn't fill someone's minds with useless information, because that hurts them. So the bodhisattva, once this ideal is really penetrating one's mind, the idea of abandoning the 10 non-virtues is reinforced immensely. It's not that you didn't come to the table with that. Obviously, the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity push us in that direction to know that that's a necessary thing. But our ability to stay ethical is reinforced by our practice of bodhicitta, because non-harm has, when we look at the mental factor of non-harm, it has as its basis compassion. And we know that's what we're trying to generate, is great compassion. So that would be great compassion, meaning compassion that in relation to every single sentient being in the universe, wanting every single sentient being in the universe to be free from suffering. So if you had a mind that wanted that, how would you wouldn't, if your mind was operating in that way of wanting them, so everyone in the universe to be free from suffering, how would you then be able to really engage in those 10 non-virtues? It would be like you'd be repelled, as if like just repelled by these sorts of things because you would see how harmful they are to your goal, Buddhahood, because your goal of Buddhahood requires you helping sentient beings, not harming sentient beings. So this is very precious medicine that can help us in so many different ways. And there's so much precious advice in these mind training teachings that is applicable not only to just this spiritual path of Buddhism, but these teachings are taught in a secular perspective many, many times. And there are debates whether you have to apply the idea of previous and future lives to this. I'm on the side that believes you do. Others believe you could just teach this, in a full way without needing to talk about past and future lives. I challenge, a 5-minute conversation about that. I don't really know how you would want to become a Buddha if you didn't see this korwa, if you didn't see samsara as a real situation. You'd have to, in order to get bodhicitta, you have to have renunciation and want to get out of samsara. Part of samsara is shucking off bodies and being reborn again and again, high to low, when we read about this uncertainty of samsara and the medium scope. So the great scope is caused by the medium scope. So I really don't see how this could be done without believing in past and future lives in a way that could have the impact on our minds that it's meant to. It's not meant to just make us nicer, and then we just call those nicer people bodhisattvas. This is meant to change our minds into a mind that has already decided samsara has nothing to offer. And now we realize it's so disgusting for ourselves, and we look around and realize it's disgusting for everyone else. And you and I both have the same problem. We believe things intrinsically exist. And if we could both get rid of that problem, neither one of us would have the greater problem of samsara. And neither one of us would ever act in a way again that could harm, that would harm. So I feel fortunate tonight to be able to talk to you about these teachings. So without further ado, let's generate this mind, this most beautiful mind in the universe, the central pillar of the Mahayana, according to Lama Tsongkhapa, the most highest ideal of the Mahayana, according to Arya Nagarjuna, the gold-making elixir that transforms this ordinary, this dirty body into a Buddha's body, as Bodhisattva Shantideva said. This thing that when we generate, we're automatically called a child of the Sukatas, and we're revered by all beings. The moment we generate this mind, from a lineage perspective and from our potential perspective, we would exceed an arhat if we could generate this mind. It'd be like becoming one of the most important beings in the universe, becoming a more important being to sentient beings than an arhat in an abiding nirvana, becoming a being who will be able to help an arhat in an abiding nirvana in the future. That's the Buddha. Wow. This is not just talking about making us a little bit better. This is talking about changing our perspective completely about everything. It's not about thinking a little differently. It's about thinking completely differently. It's about saying, since beginningless time, I've had this illness called self-grasping ignorance and self-centered attitude. And I haven't known it. I've thought self-grasping ignorance was just normal. I didn't even know it was called self-grasping ignorance. I didn't even hear about it until I heard about Buddhism. But then when I heard about it, I said, yeah, if there are previous lives, it makes sense how this thing is the mechanism that keeps it going. Because I'm definitely, when I look at what self-grasping ignorance is, doing it. having it, involved with it. And then when I look at what it does logically, not like woo woo, some mystical guy told me something from space, I logically look at how if I believe something in a wrong way, how that can spiral into my suffering. I can logically see that. And then I look at self-cherishing attitude and I can study the text and I can logically see how this actually destroys my happiness over and over and over again. Logically see this, not be told this is true. Use my own brain, my own logic and reasoning with some ideas that the Buddha put out there to discover what the Buddha said is true. Because the Buddha said, don't believe anything I said because I'm Buddha. Like a goldsmith who goes to a market where they're selling fake gold and real gold, a spiritual market where they're selling fake spirituality and real spirituality. Go to that market with your eyes wide open. Know what you really want. You want the real thing. If you want the real thing, don't just believe some words that are coming out of someone's mouth. Analyze those words. Hear the words correctly. Hear exactly what is said. And then analyze those words and discover that those words make logical sense, and then meditate on those words. This is how we evolve. The wisdom arisen from hearing, contemplation, and meditation. It doesn't come out of the sky. It doesn't get thrust upon us. We aren't chopping wood and suddenly realize everything. No, this is a gradual process that our mind goes through to evolve from the place that it is, where there are good qualities, into a place where our good qualities are magnified to the place of perfection, and that's Buddhahood. And we know that we can make our good qualities better. We've done this in our life already. We've done things where we've become better. We become better at reading. We become, we learned how to talk for, we didn't know how to say any words, and we learned how to do that. So we've seen that we can become better at things. So the same thing can be applied to our compassion, to our love, to our wisdom. We just have to mature them in a way that is cause and effect. We have to create the causes that make more mature love. We have to create the causes that make more mature compassion. We have to create the causes that make more mature wisdom. And the more and more and more mature our love, compassion, and wisdom is, the closer we are to an evolved being called an awakened one, a Buddha. So this is not anything that we have to rely upon blind faith. The Buddha discouraged blind faith. The Buddha said, don't be a blind faith disciple. Be a smart disciple. Use these teachings for what they were meant to do, to destroy the things that make you feel bad and make you unreliable. And that's what these teachings can do. And we're in a place right now that's so beautiful because we're able to hear these teachings in a way that are put in such an order that's just so easy to understand, because we're being spoon-fed, because there's been so many years since Buddha Shakyamuni, and there's an unbroken lineage, and beings have realized these teachings, and more and more and more Buddhas have been created. And in that process, little secret ways to deal with the teachings have been written down. And I don't mean secret meaning like, oh, it's not what Buddha said. It's like, oh, here's like a life hack, that a life hack doesn't mean it doesn't work or that it's secret, no one can know about it. It's just like, oh, these yogis in these caves came up with ways that you can think about bodhicitta, ways that you can think about samsara that will have a very strong impact on your mind, that will allow your mind to be cut into in a different way than if you just tried to make sense out of a sutra. So the Indian Pandits were so kind to make sense out of these things. And the Tibetan scholars came through and wrote so many commentaries. These yogis sitting in caves like Jetsun Milarepa and J. Kampopa, who then compiled these things, and Lama Tsongkhapa and so forth, sat in caves, and the Panchen Lamas, writing these commentaries where they're writing things like, now imagine the hermit in the cave next to you. Imagine that. We're getting instructions from beings like this. We're so, so fortunate. So let's just imagine that we've generated this mind. Let's just try to imagine the result of bodhicitta. Let's try to imagine that our mind is saturated with this idea, this main mind that's supported by only beautiful mental factors that says, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, that day and night wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of every single sentient being in the universe in an unbiased fashion. The reason I want to become a Buddha is for everyone in the universe. And somehow that fulfills all of my needs. So let's say this to all of us together. May I become a Buddha for the benefit of all my dear mother sentient beings. Now imagine the space in front of us. All the Buddhas now appear. Imagine Buddha Shakyamuni. Imagine His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, inseparable from Aryatara. All the holy enlightened masters, all the beings of the extensive deeds lineage, the profound view lineage, the lineage of blessings, the holy beings of the Nyingma, Sakya, Kaju, Galupa, all the Nalanda Pandits, all the beings of the Theravada tradition, Dharmagupta tradition, the Mulasavastavada tradition, all the highest Yoga Tantra deities, Performance Tantra deities, Action Tantra deities, 35 Buddhas, all of the protector deities. Imagining all these holy beings that were so influenced by in this Galupa lineage passed down from Lama Tsongkhapa and Kirtub-je and Joseph-je, Jayan Chu-je, Basu Chuji Jetsun, Pensin Sonandrapa, Jayan Sheba, Jayan Gapi Lodru, Gontu Jimmy Wampo, Janja Ripi Dorje, fourth and fifth Panchen Lama, first Dalai Lama, second Dalai Lama, third Dalai Lama, fifth Dalai Lama, seventh Dalai Lama, 14th Dalai Lama, all of these texts we've used over the last year and a half to understand these teachings. Imagine all of these beings are in the space in front of us that we're so connected to like a spiritual family. When we look back, at my teacher and my teacher's teachers, my teacher's teacher's teachers, we just find these giants of philosophy. My teacher was a giant of philosophy. His teacher, Ling and Trijung and Zong Rinpoches, were giants of philosophy. They were the Dalai Lama's tutors, Shakar Khentrul Rinpoche, giants of philosophy. Khensur Pema Jetsun, giant of philosophy. And then go back further. We end up at Pobunka Rinpoche. We end up at all of these giants of philosophy. We end up at Lord Jetsun Milarepa and Lord Atisha and Master Dron Tompa. This is our spiritual family. As I talk to you, I spoke to my teacher who spoke to his teacher, who spoke to their teacher. We're speaking the language of these holy, holy beings. We're so fortunate. And imagine they're all right there in the space in front of us. Now you said, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. We're recognizing that our happiness depends upon other sentient beings. Now, every single sentient being in the universe wants happiness and wants to be free from suffering. Imagine that we invite every single sentient being without any bias here with us right now. The way that the Lam Rim teaches us, imagine that we're inviting our friends, those ones who are closest to us, and then strangers, and then inviting those people we consider difficult people. And as we engage in these practices more and more and more, those beings that we consider difficult, we will have less of a difficulty in generating compassion towards them. Because we will recognize that, like ourselves, they're out of control, spinning out of control with self-grasping ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude. It's my self-grasping ignorance and my self-cherishing attitude that makes me see this person as so distasteful, as such a monster. It's my self-grasping ignorance and my self-cherishing attitude that disallows me to see that their ugly behavior isn't an excuse for me not to love them and not to have compassion for them. Love is wanting beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness, and compassion is wanting beings to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So when somebody is acting in an ugly manner, a bodhisattva sees that as an opportunity to help and sees that as an opportunity for them to generate love and compassion for that being. So let's play with these ideas and let's saturate our mind with the kinds of practices that will make it more natural for us to do this in the future. Because when we look at Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection, we'll see that there are mental bases that are necessary to create in order for bodhicitta to arise. There are mental bases that are necessary to create in order for renunciation to arise. So the mental bases that are necessary to create for bodhicitta to arise are things like recognizing how awesome the Buddhas are, right? You would only want to become a Buddha if you knew how awesome the Buddhas are. So you have to know everything about what Buddhas are, Buddhas aren't. Generating compassion towards sentient beings in an unbiased way. So we're seeing that all of these things are necessary. So anyway, without further ado, imagine that you bring every single sentient being here in the universe. Those ones that you know, your friends, strangers, and enemies, are those difficult beings. And then after you've worked with beings that you are aware of, when you look at Acharya Kamalashila's stages of meditation, it says, work with beings that you are in contact with, that you actually know, not like ones on Mars that you have no idea about. Work with the ones in your meditation first that you actually know, so that in your life you can see how in real life, when you're not on your meditation cushion, your practice is going in relation to them. When you turn on the TV and you see something you don't like, or you see someone you don't like, is your mind more apt to say ninji, compassion, love, or is it not working? And this is why in our meditation we work with actual beings, so that we can use them as a gauge in our real life. Invite those beings, and then invite every other sentient being in the universe here to share in this teaching. When you become a Buddha, you'll be able to connect to every single sentient being in the universe without exception, and you'll be able to speak in their own languages. In the beginning, we said in the language of gods, humans, and gods, nagas, and yakshas, in the language of humans and demons, and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be. I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. This I shall means in the future, when I become the Buddha, I'll actually be able to do this. And now I'm just going to have this aspiration. So I set a mental basis so that in the future, my mind is ripened enough to be able to proclaim the Dharma in the language of all, because it will mean that I'm omniscient and I have removed the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. And I'll be able to actually proclaim that. But by my making aspirations to be able to proclaim it, I'm creating a mental basis for the ability to later proclaim it. Does that make sense? I hope this makes sense. I want to make sure that when we teach, and I teach Lamrim, when I teach bodhicitta, that I'm teaching it from the basis of logic, not from the basis of some out there thing that doesn't seem like there's any way to touch anything I'm talking about. We want to work with these things in our everyday life so that we can actually see if our mind's evolving. This is the mirror of the Dharma that we use, and our life is, the only thing that we're looking at it in about. So hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods, after you've invited those beings that you know about. Maybe you know some hell beings personally. I don't. Maybe you know a demigod or two. I don't. But I eventually will, if I keep doing this practice, because I will have to help the hell being and the demigod to get out of cyclic existence when I'm a Buddha. This is such a huge thing that we're talking about. And I just want to always let everyone know the gravity of what we're talking about. And that this isn't just some silly thing or this kind of silly ideas that we're kicking around at a coffee shop. These are things that can make us, bodhicitta is something that once it's generated, if we don't screw up in the initial stages of it, long story, the rest of our lives, until we become a Buddha, we'll have it. Yeah. And it says that the bodhisattva moves from joy to 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 joy, because it's a mind that cherishes others, that cherishes others, that cherishes others, that cherishes others. And if we cherish others, the joy comes. So this is setting us up forever to have joy in a greater amount as we go. Wow. That's the stakes. Do you want to maybe be a slug, or do you want to go from joy to joy to joy to joy to joy? If we do this right before we die and we can get a real taste of this, we can go from joy to joy to joy to joy. Or maybe be a slug or go to hell, right? Yeah, these are the stakes. And if we start to study the Lam Rim and begin to believe this because it's what is true, we'll discover it is what is true. Then it will change us and it will make us think things that we thought were important aren't important at all, and believe in things that we probably wouldn't have never thought no one thinks is important are important. Okay, so everybody's here with us. The enlightened beings are here, and all sentient beings are here. So the line of demarcation. Uh, so when we say sentient beings, that means everyone who's not a Buddha that possesses a mind. And then when we say not a sentient being, but a being, right? A being, that's Buddhas only. So that line of demarcation is the 10th Bodhisattva ground, we say. As soon as you cross that line, you're no longer a sentient being. So you become a Buddha and the resultant state. So now imagine that this beautiful group of beings that we're imagining in the space in front of us kind of rearranges itself, and this whole area transforms into Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, where the Heart Sutra was taught, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, where the definitive truth was taught, where the wisdom that we will need to become enlightened was taught. When we look at what's needed to become a Buddha, we need two things. We need method and we need wisdom. We need liberating paths and we need ripening paths. Ripening paths are the method side. Liberating paths are the wisdom side. And just like a bird, Acharya Chandrakirti talks about a bird, a golden goose, flying over an ocean. Requires two wings, right? If a bird wants to fly, it needs two wings. If a bird wanted to fly over a body of water, if they only had one wing, they wouldn't be able to make it over the body of water. But with two wings, they can make it over the body of water. Likewise, the Bodhisattva who wishes to cross over to the other side of cyclic existence to complete enlightenment, to complete Buddhahood, requires two wings to fly over that great body of water. And those two wings are the wings of method and wisdom, the wings of the liberating paths and the ripening paths. Liberating paths being the wisdom, the ripening paths being the method. So what we were talking about previously, just 10 seconds ago, was the ripening paths, talking about bodhicitta and renunciation, things like meditation. And these are all ripening paths that are necessary in order for us to clear the way to see emptiness. And depending on the strength of the ripening paths and how they kind of move us, because the ripening paths are moving us towards our goals. If the ripening paths are only renunciation, and not this caring for all beings, just this idea, I got to get out of here, samsara for myself, that force of that kind of aspiration, when coupled with wisdom, a liberating path of wisdom, will only allow us to achieve an abiding nirvana. It won't allow us to achieve our complete goal. We hear arhatship of a hero, a solitary realizer, or a Shravaka or Prachika Buddha, abiding nirvana. If the winds, if the force of our motivation that is renunciation alone, then that wisdom realizing emptiness, mixed with this renunciation, will allow us to get out of samsara but not become a Buddha. It's only when we have this ripening path of bodhicitta mixed with the wisdom that allows this wisdom to get at what keeps us from Buddhahood at the end of the day, allows us to get at what keeps the Hinayana Arhat in an abiding nirvana and not a Buddha until they progress the path. of the Mahayana, which they will do. So that it's what keeps us, that those it's called the obstructions to omniscience, that keep us from being complete Buddhas, um, if bodhicitta isn't present. So if only renunciation is present, then that factor that's necessary, that condition that's necessary to make you into a Buddha isn't there. The only condition that's there uh, to ripen you is one that will ripen you into an arhat, which is a lower nirvana in terms of an abiding nirvana versus a non-abiding nirvana. An arhat is stuck in nirvana until they progress the bodhisattva path, and then they can deal with conventional and ultimate reality and help sentient beings. So it's called an extreme of peace, and is considered like a jail for a bodhisattva. But the bodhisattva, because of this force of the bodhicitta, this force of wanting to work for others, this force of trying to get rid of the self-cherishing attitude, this allows the emptiness to penetrate deeper problems in one's mind. And those deeper problems are called the obstructions to omniscience. They're the subtle stains of the self-grasping ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude that an arhat still has. So it's this bodhicitta we're talking about that'll push us that way. But without the liberating path of emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the bodhicitta we could get and have it forever, and it will never ever get us anywhere. It will just be a cause for samsara, believe it or not. Sorry. So the liberating path is what we need to have combined with it. And in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma is where the Buddha taught us the liberating path. The Buddha taught us that you are not liberated. You are not free. You are bound. Why are you bound in cyclic existence? It's like if cyclic existence was a place that was corralled off. You're bound to it. Why are you stuck? What's keeping you tied up in this mess? And what's keeping us tied up in this mess is the self-grasping ignorance. It's believing in a mode of existence of everything, ourselves, other people, everything else in the universe, believing in a mode of existence in relation to self of persons, to people and phenomena that is incorrect. Believing there's a self of person and a self of phenomena that intrinsically exists. And when we say self of person, it just means intrinsically existent person. When we say self, in some cases, we're talking about, oh, person, myself, the conventional self. Jeff is the self that's talking. But when we're speaking about it in relation to emptiness, self has a different connotation. Self has the idea of an intrinsically existent self and becomes the object of negation. The self that's talking to you right now is not the object that we're negating when we talk about the Heart Sutra, when we're talking about the thing we're getting wrong about everything. We're not getting wrong that there's someone talking to us. It's the mode of existence that I'm talking to you, that I'm getting screwed up and you're getting screwed up because, well, you might not be, but I'm getting screwed up because I feel like my speech has intrinsic existence. It sounds like it does. And when I think about it, yes, it intrinsically exists. I'm saying things that have intrinsic meaning. I intrinsically exist. I have a mode of existence from my own side that's findable under investigation. I feel it. I feel like everything around me has this concrete existence that I have nothing to do with, that's just kind of plopped here all around me. And then I make decisions around its realness that's all plopped all around me. All this realness plopped all around this real me that I make decisions about because I believe they have values because they're real and they don't have any relation to my own mind projecting them. They don't have any, they aren't just merely imputed in dependence upon a collection that serves as a basis of designation. All those parts over there that seem like those are the plant aren't the plant. But to my mind, I feel like the plant exists right within its parts and it's findable within the object, and I have nothing to do with it from a projection perspective, from an imputation perspective. I feel that it just exists as a plant from its own side intrinsically. But when I subject plants and I subject Jeff's and I subject John's to ultimate analysis, I come to find out the only place that logically and intrinsically concrete person like Jeff or John or an intrinsically concrete plant could exist, it would have to be able to be found within its parts or outside of its parts. There's only two options. There's, either here or somewhere else. And when I subject Jeff, John, and plants to ultimate analysis, when I start to try to move closer to is Jeff the earth? Is Jeff the water? Is Jeff the fire? Is Jeff wind? Is Jeff consciousness? And I start to move closer to this thing that is only things that seem to make up Jeff. I can't seem to find something concrete that jumps up, that is a sign that says, here's Jeff. When I look for John, I can't find something that jumps up in the six elements, earth, water, wind, fire, space, and the consciousness that jumps up and says, there's John. And I can't look over at that plant and subject it to ultimate analysis and look at its parts, look at its shape, look at its color, look at its petals, look at its, all of it, its roots. I can't even see its roots, but that's plant, but I think I'm seeing plant. When I subject that to ultimate analysis and I look for it in its parts, I can't find this plant that I feel exists from its own side without me having anything to do with it when I subject it to that. And then when I say, well, then maybe it's somewhere else, that's ludicrous. Well, maybe Jeff is somewhere else, not in his mind, not in his body. Maybe John's somewhere else, not in his mind, not in his body. Maybe the plant's somewhere else, not the thing sitting over there. Maybe it's in another universe. Makes no sense. So the entailment of emptiness is that if something can't be intrinsically one or intrinsically different from its parts, it can't intrinsically exist. Because those are the only places that it could be. But here's the problem. We aren't negating existence. We're negating a specific mode of existence that we're getting wrong. So then when we get out of that ultimate analysis that only is deciding if something has this concrete existence from its own side, like me and you and those plants, when we come out of that ultimate analysis, that non-finding of this concrete thing that feels so naturally there to us, we've got to harmonize the fact that this stuff is there. It's not that this realization of ultimate analysis made the universe disappear. It just means the universe is functioning in a way that's different from the way that I think. And the yogis come to find out that things are operating subjectively, merely imputed in dependence upon a collection that serves as a basis of designation, as opposed to objectively, right within the object, right within the Jeff. There's a mental construct, a conceptual construct that is creating my whole reality. And that conceptual construct is starting from a place. Conceptuality is not a problem. Wrong conceptuality is a problem. So if I'm starting from a wrong conceptual standpoint where I think things like you, me, and plants concretely exist, then I'm going to make all kinds of errors from there. Because I'm going to think you're intrinsically awesome, so I should be attached to you, or you intrinsically suck, so I should hate you. That plant's intrinsically awful, so I should get it out of my house, throw it out of my house, right? Someone who gave us a plant, anyway, one of the plants that he wanted to get rid of, you could tell there was some sort of anger behind the plant story. Yeah. So, some sort of divorce anger around the plant story. Get this darn plant out of my house. Get this intrinsically existent plant out of my house because I had an intrinsically existent bad experience with an intrinsically bad person who was intrinsically good before. Now that makes no sense. They were intrinsically good. Now they're intrinsically bad. That can't be possible because intrinsic existence doesn't change. And we think that everything intrinsically exists. Yet we see how fragile our mind is. We see how ready our mind is just to say, oh, no, 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 that's not how it intrinsically exists. It intrinsically exists like that. Oh, no, 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 that's not my friend. That's someone that I hate. They were intrinsically my friend, but now they're intrinsically someone that I don't like. We don't even see our minds doing this really mentally ill thing that we're doing around the mode of existence that's incorrect, that the Buddha came to tell us about at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. The Buddha came to tell us that nothing in the universe intrinsically exists. Nothing. The Buddha doesn't intrinsically exist. Even though at the beginning of the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha said that the Four Noble Truths exist truly, the Buddha said in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma that nothing, including the Four Noble Truths, exists truly. Nothing intrinsically exists. Nothing is established by way of its own character. Nothing is established right within the object. Nothing is truly established. Nothing is truly existent. Nothing is intrinsically existent. Nothing is self arisen. Nothing is self established. These are all of the things that the Buddha said, but things exist. So there's a mode of existence that isn't self established, that isn't inherent existence, that isn't true existence, that isn't established by way of its own character. And that mode of existence is subjective existence, a subjective mode of existence that makes it so that we can harmonize the fact that things don't objectively exist, but they do exist. Okay, so that's enough about that. I just want to reinforce that things do exist, but they don't intrinsically exist. The object of negation for the Heart Sutra is intrinsic existence. The no I, every time you hear no, put the word no intrinsic I in there. And the Buddha told us to do so because he started the sutra by saying, saw in this way, he saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature, empty of intrinsic existence. Likewise, and then he goes on to say, likewise, all these other things are empty of intrinsic existence. So it's important for us to be able to establish that things exist, but things don't intrinsically exist. The object of negation is intrinsic existence. The understanding of emptiness is a non-affirming negative. It doesn't infer anything else. We can't say that we can express anything about the dependent origination that we're subjecting to ultimate analysis, whether it exists or it doesn't exist, because things aren't found under ultimate analysis, but that non-finding is also not intrinsically existent. So not finding the flower is also not intrinsically existent. The sutra, so if we can undo this wrong mode of existence kind of way of thinking and then eventually appearing when we become Buddhas, all our problems will be solved. Just like that, all our problems will be solved. And then we have to couple this again, this liberating path of the wisdom realizing emptiness with the ripening paths of bodhicitta and renunciation and meditations and the first five perfections and so forth, not related to the wisdom realizing emptiness. So, yeah, so that's it. So let's read the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard. Once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, Noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra, and Noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita addressed in this way, Noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth. In no cessation, there is no impurity. In no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas. No mind consciousness, datu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth. Since there is no deception, the Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangate buddhi soha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Kala jebe ne jodamba ne nguje de junga yi de de jen tu ba ba lama yi vijin zi ne zungan do so la ja ze lo aga samara de janda samara yoga samara janda. Agha samara dajandara samara ya be te yata ongate gate paragate parasangate buddhi zoha baba gonji samji gaye demi doji she lobo doji meba doji shewa doji dagi baji metu beji danji she den kariya zoha girin don jaji she wadan medon ne bejan don de wadan tamba don jimbon zonzo doji daji de janden da de le jo. And a little late, but better late than never, outer mandala offering is a request for the teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas High, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready. Shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. And now, refuge prayer. Sanje je dan zo ji je nan la zhang jo ba du da ni jia zu ji da gi ju xie ji bei zong nan ji zhe la bian jie san jie ju ba zhou sanje je dan zo ji je nan la zhang jo ba du da ni jia zu ji da gi ju xie ji bei zong nan ji zhe la bian jie san jie ju ba zhou sanje je dan zo ji je nan la zhang jo ba du da ni jia zu ji da gi ju xie ji bei zong nan ji zhe la bian jie san jie ju ba zhou. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. From Sachen Kongan Nipo's parting from the four attachments. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. And if there is grasping, you do not have the view. And so, yeah, we'll do just a little bit of the reading from Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice after we go through, we read the source of all my good, these beautiful 14 stanzas that show us how to become Buddhas, the foundation of all good qualities, the Yunten Chijoma in Tibetan. And in the great master Pabonko Rinpoche's commentary on this text, it shows us how we break this into four specific categories. The first category is how we find and take on a teacher and take care of a teacher, serve them with our, mentally, and how we think about them, and then how we serve them through our actions and so forth. So the first stanza of this particular poem begins with, how to properly rely upon the teacher. And when we look at Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment, we find that the four major categories of the text are first, the greatness of the teacher, the greatness of the teaching, and then how to listen to and explain the teachings. And then the fourth category is how to guide students through the actual instructions. And that fourth category begins with relying upon the spiritual friend, relying on the teacher. So we find all of the juicy information about this stanza in Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment in that first chapter. So Pabonko Rinpoche says that the first category of this text deals with the teacher. The second category of the text, which is the main body of the text, is what you do once you've found a teacher. So then it begins with kind of advice that once you found a teacher, you better take advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity that you have. This is the first piece of advice that's given in the poem. And directly after the relying on the teacher and some sections on meditation and stuff that set you up in the Lamrim Chenmo to be able to meditate on the rest of the Lamrim topics. After relying on the teacher and that primer on how to meditate on the topics, we find the explanation of leisure and opportunity and the 8 leisures and the 10 opportunities that we have, and it's an exhortation to take full advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity. And Lama Tsongkhapa kind of almost hands out brochures in the next chapter and tells us what we could do to take its essence by engaging in the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. So Pabonka Rinpoche says that this is the beginning of what you should do after you've found a teacher. You should take the advice to take advantage of this life. And the way that you take the advantage of this life is by engaging in the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. So then after the exhortation to take full advantage of leisure and opportunity, then the small scope is taught, the medium scope is taught, the great scope is taught. Then the third category, according to Pope Bunko Rinpoche, is a wish, a prayer, a supplication that in this life we don't have obstacles and that we are not separated from our teachers and that our friends, our good friends like you, you're my friends, that you all live long lives and that any obstacle that I could have is removed. And then the fourth part, Pabunka Rinpoche says, is about in all my lives, may I never separate from lamas. It's a prayer that I'll have, be able to fulfill every single qualification needed to go through every level and path to become Vajradhara myself, to become a Buddha myself. So these 4 categories, according to Pabunka Rinpoche, fulfill everything in this source. And these 4 categories can then be applied to the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment as well, which is incredible. And then you can add the Great Treatise on the Tantric Stages, the Path to Enlightenment. The other book by Lama Tsongkhapa, within the stanza, 2 to 12, because Tantra is taught in here, because it's a complete path, and Tantrayana will be necessary to become a Buddha. So we'll leave it at that. So I'll point out as we go through. The Source of All My Good by Lama Tsongkhapa. This is what Pabunka Rinpoche, this first stanza is about the teacher relying on the teacher. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to them in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow them with all my strength and reverence. Now, Pabunka Rinpoche says, part 2. What do you do now you have a teacher? Well, you should take the advice to take the essence of this life. Bless me to first realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. Well, how do I take this essence? So the first part is I rely on a teacher. The second part is what to do once you've relied upon a teacher. They're saying I should take the essence of the life. How do I do that? I do that first by engaging in the teachings for beings of small capacity. Hold on, I have to prove I'm not a robot. Okay, I did it. I'm not a robot. So I have to take the way I take advantage of this life is to engage in the teachings for beings of 3 capacities, and they go in stages. And if I want to become a Buddha, we will call them the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, because they will be necessary for me to practice to become a Buddha. So all of these stages are necessary for me to practice the small scope, the medium scope, and the great scope if I want to become a Buddha. And within the great scope, there's the perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle. Both of these will be necessary if I want to become a Buddha. So you'll see how this lays out. So it says next, bless me to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. How do I do that? First, the teachings for beings of small capacity, my life, body, and this is to show us how to achieve a higher realm rebirth, to achieve a fortunate rebirth that puts us in a good position in our future life. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things I have done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow, and grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. If we want to have a precious human rebirth in the future, there are causes for it are extremely complicated. We need to engage in very, very ethical behavior and then engage in practice of the other five perfections of generosity and patience and effort and concentration and wisdom. And we have to make stainless aspirations to want to become a human. So we have to engage in ethical behavior first and foremost. So we need to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, because slightest wrongs cause rebirths in hell, cause suffering of the lower realms, and all the goods that we can engage in cause rebirth in the higher realms. So this is the point that's being made here. So this is the small scope where one is focused on wanting a fortunate rebirth. But if you want to become a Buddha, you need a fortunate rebirth to be able to practice in your next life if you don't get it all done now. So the small scope's necessary for the medium scope practitioner who wants to just get out of samsara and become an arhat of the hero solitary realizer vehicle, and also for the great scope. Okay, so that was the small scope where one says, hey, I want a fortunate rebirth in my future life. The medium scope, the person says, hey, samsara stinks. I know no matter where I go, no matter how fortunate it is, I won't be independent. I will be out of control. I will be in a jail. It may be a nicer jail than some of the other jails that I've been in since beginningless time, but it will be a jail nonetheless, and I'm done with jail. I want out of jail. I want out of the prison of cyclic existence. That kind of person that says, hey, I'm not satisfied with samsara any longer, is a person of medium capacity, and this is the teaching for them. And this teaching for them is also necessary for the teaching for beings of great capacity, because you have to want to get out of samsara and think it's a disgusting prison in order to want to help others get out of a disgusting prison. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can't get enough of them. They can't be trusted, and they are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of liberation. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teaching. So previously in the small scope, I know what I should be doing. I should be stopping all of the slightest wrongs and do everything good so I can get a higher realm rebirth. Now I'm being told I need to do that, but then I also need to practice an even purer morality and engage in the three highest higher trainings of ethics, concentration, and wisdom. I need to be able to get my mind calm enough through clean living, concentration, which comes from clean living, in order to be able to see emptiness. So we need to have the highest higher training in ethics and concentration. Ethics to keep my mind clean enough to be able to concentrate. Concentration to be able to get it calm enough to be able to directly perceive the antidote to samsara, which is the wisdom realizing emptiness. So here it's saying, I have to practice the three highest higher trainings, and at the basis of that are the vows of morality. Pradamoksha vows, it's saying right here, the essence of the practice. In the Pradamoksha vows, we know that there are 7 lifetime Pradamoksha vows. The lay person's vow for man and woman, the novice vows for man and woman, probationary nun's vow, and fully ordained monk and nun's vows. These are the 7 lifetime Pradamoksha vows that there's being spoken of in here. We can talk more about, and we have talked about it in the past. This is the medium scope. This person's disgusted with samsara and wants out, and he or she practices the 3 highest higher trainings in order to just get themselves alone out of samsara, not thinking about getting anyone else out of samsara. So it's a smaller thinking. That's why it's called Hinayana. It's called the lesser vehicle, because it's lesser type of thinking. It's a smaller type of thinking. It's saying, I just want to get out for myself. I got to get out of here. It's a big, big mind. It's a beautiful mind that wants to get out. It's not a mind I have, but it's not a big, big mind, because it's not saying I got to get you all out. So that's the medium scope. Now we move on to the great scope. And this is where we're swimming around, learning about bodhicitta, learning about the 7-point cause and effect for realizing this mind, and the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice. And this stanza is about aspiring bodhicitta, and the next is about engaged bodhicitta. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Yeah, I realize that in the medium scope. So I have to realize the small and the medium scope in order to even come to this conclusion. I've slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. I am stuck in samsara. Just like me, bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen into, and grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Practice the wish for enlightenment. Generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. Engage in the 7-point cause and effect in the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice to be able to generate a mind that would want to take on the task of freeing every single sentient being in the universe, because realizing that thought is bliss. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I can't become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Now we're talking about the union of calm abiding and special insight. I said you got to get your mind really calm. Why? So that you can see emptiness. Special insight is this wisdom realizing emptiness that is realized because it's united. It's called special insight. It's united, the real special insight, united with shamatha, with calm abiding. It actually, you get calm abiding, and then you analyze, and your analysis gets so clean that it sparks your calm abiding, and it makes a union of calm abiding and special insight. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where calm abiding and special insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Mind calm enough to not be distracted to the wrong thing. And what's the right thing? The perfect meaning, ultimate truth. That's the thing that you're trying to get your mind calm enough to realize the meaning of correctly. And now, once you have worked all of these common paths, then you become a proper vessel. Once you have these three highest higher trainings in bodhicitta and understanding of emptiness, then you become a vessel for tantrayana. Not like you're a vessel for tantrayana today, go for it. No, you do all of these practices that are foundational necessities for practicing tantra. Tantra won't work. Tantra, you might as well just go play a video game and pretend that you're, or go do like some of those like role-playing games where you go in the woods and pretend you're a knight and you have wooden swords and stuff. You might as well just go do that. Just go pretend you're a knight and you're slaying dragons. Yeah, just go do that. It maybe is more fun and you'll have to read less books maybe. Yeah, Tantra's not going to work without the foundation of ethics. And Lama Tsongkhapa is about to tell us that. So let's let Lama Tsongkhapa tell you. Grant that once I practice well, the paths shared, the teaching shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity related to the perfection vehicle, the paths shared, and become a vessel that's worthy. I become a vessel that Tantrayana could actually work with because I have the conditions necessary present for it to work. I enter with perfect ease. It's not even, it's just like a natural thing that will happen into Tantrayana, the highest of all ways, the holiest door to come inside for the fortune and good. Once you become a bodhisattva and you understand emptiness, you take an initiation and you enter a mandala with perfect ease. It's not like some forced thing. It's not like some, you can enter with perfect ease because you have the things necessary. You have the mental basis. You have the causes and conditions that make Tantrayana work. Tantrayana will not work without the basis necessary. People say you can just skip right to Tantrayana and just realize the nature of your mind. Good luck. Most people that I know who've been doing that for 30 years are exactly the way they were 30 years ago. And a lot of them are angrier and more arrogant. Work with a small scope. Don't worry about Tantra. Small scope will make your day really awesome. Playing around with Tantra, you'll probably get on the phone with someone and start complaining about everything in the universe. Practice a small scope. You'll be the one on the other side of the phone going, man, if they just understood that everything in the universe was just not so important. They just didn't realize that samsara sucks. They just wanted to play around pretending they were a deity in samsara. Yeah. Get out of samsara. Want to get out of samsara. Want to get everybody out of samsara. Then you'll realize that you can do it faster if you work with the result on the path. And you'll have to do it because you won't be able to stand the fact that you can't help people quickly enough. If your motivation to do Tantra is because you are just devastated, if you aren't devastated by the fact that you can't help people quick enough, devastated, I mean like to the point of crying, then you haven't realized what's needed to make Tantra work. If you're not devastated that you can't help people quick enough because they don't understand emptiness, then Tantra's not going to work. If you don't understand emptiness, you don't know why people are suffering. You don't know why you would want to even practice Tantra to become a Buddha quicker to help people who are suffering because you don't even know they're suffering. You don't even know you're suffering. You don't even know why you're suffering. So please, I just beg all of you, because I've been around the block for 30 years and I've seen a lot, and I have initiations and I've been around. But I'm telling you, if you don't practice these things from the ground up and you start from the top and you don't really know what you're doing, it's not going to work. Because bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then always to keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times highest that there is. Now we get into the third category. So now we just learn what we're supposed to do with our life. Once we've, found a teacher, now we've learned, okay, what do we do? And the advice is take the essence of the life. Okay, now we found out how to take the essence of the life. We engage in the practice of the teachings for beings of 3 capacities, the teaching shared in common with the beings of small, medium, and great capacity. I'm saying in common, you don't usually say that around the great, but I'm talking about the perfection vehicle. And then practicing the Tantrayana. So anyway, it's just a lot of things to think about when we look at the stages of the path. And it's not to say not to get the blessings, not to do mantras, not to take initiations, but don't get ahead of yourself in your arrogance and thinking that you're somewhere you're not. Use them as imprints and blessings so that when your actual practice that will be the foundation catches up, you'll have this predisposition for Tantrayana. That's the Tantrayana that I'm working with. Imprints, so that when I actually can practice it, it's there and ready. That's it. So think of it in that respect, or do whatever you want. It's free. Freedom. As Rinpoche would say, freedom. Okay, so now we're going to learn about not wanting to be separated from our spiritual friends in this life, and how people like you in my life, I want you to live long, long time so we can continue to share these good times together. So it's a prayer that anything that would be an obstacle to those things inside me or outside me could just stop and end forever. So there's a supplication, a prayer that is like, keep this going, keep this, good stuff happening, the spiritual stuff happening, good friends, good teachers, no obstacles. And if the obstacles are there, may I convert them into the Dharma practice. That's the Lojong. So that's what this stanza. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road, all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. And then the 4th category, according to Pumpunka Rinpoche, is this prayer that in all of our lives, we're never separated from lamas, we're never separated from the Dharma, and that we just keep going. And we go through every level and every path, and then reach then Buddhahood. Vajradhara is the tantric Buddha. So we reach the state of Vajradhara. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path. And reach then quickly the place where I become myself the one who holds the diamond. So before I was saying, like, when we think of these Buddhas in the space in front of us, these are role models in the sense of this is who we will become. When I become myself the one who holds the diamond. This is what these teachings are geared to make us do, not geared to make us just bow down to an authority figure. They're created. The Buddha came to teach us how to discover what he discovered so that you can be a totally happy, enlightened being without afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. So that's what this is about. And we've been looking at, I've slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see every living being, everyone my own mother has fallen into, and then grant me to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. And we looked at the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So we know what this means. Everyone my own mother. We know we did this meditation where we had equanimity generated in 7-point cause and effect. And then we generated this idea that all sentient beings are our mother. And we looked at this logically, looking at Arya Asanga's text and then looking at Acharya Dharmakirti's text, where we could prove this beginningless consciousness to kind of make an impact on our mind to see that this is an actual fact, that every living being is our mother. A mother before, my mother yesterday is my mother today. My mother 100 lifetimes ago is my mother today. We're thinking in terms of time and just moments of time. It was just I that was there then, and I that am there, and that I am there now. I was just designated in dependence upon a different set of aggregates collection that served as a basis of designation. But it was still I, still me, just a different. And that's how we know that the I and the basis, these parts, are contradictory, because the I existed in a previous life without these parts. I'm merely imputed in dependence upon these parts that serve as a basis. I'm imputed as a human because I have human parts. I have the basis of human parts. Yeah. This is very, very good medicine. If you know what the medicine is, you know how to read the label, and you know when to take what. If you don't know what the medicine is and when to take what, and you just start taking medicine haphazardly, that generally doesn't cure your illness. So we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment, on equalizing exchange with self with others, and learning how to practice getting this wish for enlightenment so that we could eventually land on this idea that I must take on the task to free every single sentient being from suffering. In order to do that, I have to be a Buddha. So we learned the 7-point cause and effect passed down from Lord Maitreya to Arya Sangha. And now we're learning about the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni, Arya Manjushri, and down through to Bodhisattva Shantideva. And we're about to end, but I wanted to say that this, in the outline, it begins with the training based on the teachings of the conqueror's child, Shantideva. And the first part that Lama Tsongkhapa goes over is contemplating the benefits of exchanging self and other, and the faults of not exchanging self with other. And, it seems like a really radical thing, because it starts out with a quote from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life that says, whoever wishes to quickly protect self and other must exchange self for other. Practice this excellent secret. So we have to learn, first of all, what the benefits of this are. And the secret is that when we looked at the first chapter of Bodhisattva Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, it was the benefits of the awakening mind. And we learned all of these great benefits that Bodhicitta has. You can't get Bodhicitta if you don't cherish others more than yourself. Even though it's not inside the 7-point cause and effect, the way that we're saying it, putting others' needs before your own. The fifth Dalai Lama, Ngawang Losang Gyatso, the great fifth, says that there's nothing missing in the 7-point cause and effect that is found in Bodhisattva Shantideva's text. It's just, you're not pulling it out of it. So here, let's show you how to do so. So what I want to do, because we're explaining this according to Bodhisattva Shantideva's text, and we did the transmission of the 10 chapters. Traditionally, when a transmission is given, the person who gives the transmission goes back and reads a few stanzas from the first chapter. And I thought, hey, the benefits of cherishing others more than yourself, the benefits of the awakening mind. If you don't cherish others more than yourself, you can't get bodhicitta. So it's like the real, ta-da, is that if you don't cherish others more than yourself, you won't get these benefits that Bodhisattva Shantideva talks about in the first chapter. I'll read a few stanzas and then we'll end. I'm sorry if I went on a couple minutes late. Okay, chapter one from Bodhisattva Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life in Tibetan Shunju. Respectfully, I prostrate, and so this is the chapter one, benefits of the awakening mind. Respectfully, I prostrate myself to the Sagatas who are endowed with the Dharmakaya, as well as to their noble sons and to all who are worthy of veneration. Here I shall explain how to engage in the vows of the Buddha's children, the meaning of which I have condensed in accordance with the scriptures. There is nothing here that has not been explained before, and I have no skill in the art of rhetoric. Therefore, lacking any intention to benefit others, I write this in order to acquaint it with my own mind. For due to acquaintance with what is wholesome, the force of my faith may for a short while increase because of these words. If, however, these words are seen by others, equal in fortune to myself, it may be meaningful for them too. Leisure and endowment are hard to find, and since they accomplish what is meaningful for people, if I don't take advantage of them now, how will such a perfect opportunity come again? Just as a flash of lightning on a dark, cloudy night for an instantly brilliantly illuminates all, likewise in this world, through the might of the Buddha, a wholesome thought rarely but briefly appears. Hence, virtue is perpetually feeble, the great strength of evil being extremely intense. And except for a fully awakening mind, by what other virtue will it be overcome? All the Buddhas who have contemplated for many eons have seen it to be beneficial, for by it the limitless masses of beings will quickly attain the state of supreme bliss. Those who wish to destroy the many sorrows of their conditioned existence, those who wish all beings to experience a multitude of joys, and those who wish to experience much happiness should never forsake bodhicitta, the awakening mind. The moment an awakening mind, bodhicitta, arises, and those fettered and weak in the jail of cyclic existence, they will be named a child of the Sugatas and will be revered by men, women, and gods of the world. And Sugata means one gone to bliss, a child of the one gone to bliss. This means bodhisattva. Okay, thank you so much. Anyone who received that transmission, I feel so blessed to have been able to give it. I received it in its entirety from Umse Geshe Agha, who received it from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And he said that His Holiness gave over 50 times the teaching on Bodhicharyavatara at Drepung. It's amazing. So anyway, uh, let's dedicate and let's try to make our minds work more and more like Bodhisattva Shantideva says uh, they should if we want bliss. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Jambel Bawa Jeda Jemba Dangon du Zambo de Yon de Jende de Da Gonji Jesu Dalo Jegewa de Da Danje Radungo du Zun Jebi Jewa Danje Jingo Wa Ganla Jodunga Ba de Da Jenge We Zawa de Gonjan Zambo Juji Radungo Warji. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Any mistakes that I've been made, I did not make them on purpose. Can't think of any that I did, but if I did, may they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva. Om Benzasato Samayam and Balaya Benzasato Zena Bajita Dida Meva Sudagaya Meva Subagaya Meva Narag Meva Zavasi Meva Raja Zava Kamasuju Mekitam Shian Kurum Ha Bhagavan Sava Tatakata Benzama Memoka Benza Baba Ma Samaya Sapa Ah Om Ve. May we always be protected by Paul and Lama. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Junjo Kala Raja Mo Ramo Aja Daja Dunjo Rilo Rilo Hong Jo Hong. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. Shanju Zenjo Rinpoche, Maje Banam Je Joji, Je Nyamba Me Bayan, Gonne Gondu Belwa Jo. Through this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead every being without exception into that enlightened state. Gewa di nyodu da lama zanje dujo ne dowa jinja maluba de zala gobarjo. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and help for beings, all powerful. Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Ari Rawe Gorwe Shinyon Niwen Nande Amalu Jongwe Nejen Rezi Onden Yazo Ijabezide Badu Tenyoji. And a supplication to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, my root teacher, who was so kind, that gives me the gasoline to be able to do this. Every morning I wake up, I think of him right away, and it gives me the juice, the power to just keep going because I saw what he had and I want it so badly, and I know I can get it because he gave me the recipe. I just have to make me into it. Complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. Teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar to our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha is not washing away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries with his hands. His spiritual realizations aren't transferred to them. It's by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. Sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world. Take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patient listening, for being so kind to come week after week to allow for the dependent origination of this teaching to occur, because it really has an effect on my mind. The way that Bodhisattva Shantideva begins the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, I can really relate to because this is so helpful for me. It's such medicine for me to be able to talk about these things and to challenge myself around these topics, and to make sure that I never ever express something to you that I'm not trying my hardest to do myself. Take care. See you around.